From being a kid with a rough start in Baltimore to becoming one of the biggest names in boxing, here's all about Gervonta Davis's rise to fame. Starting off with his humble beginnings in MD. It wasn't an easy journey for the young boxing phenomenon, growing up in one of the city's most dangerous neighborhoods. He turned to boxing at the young age of 5 as a way to stay out of trouble.
Coming up, normal, just an inner city kid, mother, father was on drugs and things like that. And, my mother left us in the house by ourselves, and Protective Service, they came, grabbed us and things like that when they split us up, and once my grandma fought to get us back.
His coach Calvin Ford saw his potential and took him under his wing. Ford was a former drug dealer turned mentor to young boxers in the area, and he isn't the only one who Davis impressed. Gervonta ended up catching the eye of Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather is one of the greatest boxers of all time, so when he takes notice of someone, you know they're special. The rookie actually first caught Mayweather's attention when he was just a teenager fighting in amateur bouts. Mayweather saw something in Tank's speed, power, and determination that reminded him of himself. So he took the kid under his wing and became his mentor. And let me tell you, that was a game changer for Davis. Mayweather has been through it all in the boxing world, so he knows exactly what it takes to succeed. He taught Tank how to stay focused and how to train harder than anyone else. With Mayweather's guidance, the young boxer started racking up wins left and right, and he finally made his debut, facing off Desai Williams at just 18 years old. Davis was still considered a baby in the boxing world, but man, did he show up and show out. Williams may not have been a world champion, but he was no slouch either. He had 4 fights under his belt, all losses, but all by knockout. So you know he was coming in looking for blood. But Davis didn't let that faze him. Davis was quick, he was precise, and he was ruthless. And in the end, Davis won by TKO in the first round. That's right, the first round. It was a huge deal for Davis to win like that in his debut fight. It showed the world that he wasn't just some young punk trying to make a name for himself. He was the real deal.
Many use it as an excuse. Coming from where I come from, me, I just use it as my motivation, And my coach always, stored it in my brain that anything I set my mind to, I can achieve it. And no matter what go against it, I can overcome it.
And from that moment on, Davis's star began to rise. And before long, he had his big breakthrough. You guessed it, it was winning the IBF Super Featherweight title. And it marked the beginning of Gervonta Davis's rise to fame, because winning that title really put him on the map. Let me set the stage for you. Davis was facing off against Jose Pedraza for the IBF Super Featherweight title. It was a fight for the ages. Davis came out swinging, and he didn't let up until he had Pedraza on the ropes. Davis's style was just too much for Pedraza to handle. In the end, Davis won the fight by TKO in the 7th round. The crowd went absolutely wild. Davis had proven himself as one of the best boxers in the world, and he had a shiny new belt to show for it. The victory was especially sweet for Davis because he had faced some criticism leading up to the fight. Some people had questioned his discipline and focus outside the ring. And let's not forget about his epic post-fight celebration. Davis climbed up on the ropes and shouted out to the crowd, his fist raised in triumph, a moment that would later go down in the history of boxing. It was the kind of breakthrough that many boxers dream of, and it set him up for even greater success, because shortly after that, he faced off Liam Walsh, and a star was born on the international stage. Now, Liam Walsh was no pushover. He was completely undefeated going into the fight, and he had a lot of hometown support. But Davis didn't let that faze him. From the opening bell, he came out strong and showed off his incredible speed and power. Walsh tried to counter, but Davis was just too fast. And then, in the 3rd round, Davis landed a crazy uppercut that knocked Walsh out cold. It was an incredible moment, and the crowd was stunned. Davis had not only won the fight, but he had done it in an amazing fashion. After that fight, Davis was all anyone could talk about. He had announced himself as a true superstar in the making, and people were dying to see more of him. And he definitely delivered on that front. But it's also been a rocky road for him. The 22-year-old has had his fair share of controversies. The guy's had some legal trouble. Davis has been arrested and charged with disorderly conduct after getting into a street fight in Baltimore. The whole incident is a bit unclear. but witnesses report seeing Davis throwing punches and getting into a scuffle with another man. He was eventually released without bail, and the charges were later dropped. Then Davis was arrested again, this time for assaulting his ex-girlfriend. The incident took place at a charity basketball game in Miami, where Davis and his ex-girlfriend got into an argument which quickly turned physical. Video footage of the incident showed him grabbing his ex-girlfriend by the neck and forcibly removing her from her seat. He was then charged with simple battery and domestic violence, and he turned himself into the police shortly after the incident. The case went viral with people were talking about it all over social media. But this isn't the only obstacle he's faced. The boxer's weight has been a recurring problem too. He's failed to make weight for fights and struggled to keep it under control in general. It's like the one thing that keeps coming back to haunt him. He's had a few fights where he straight up didn't make weight, which can be a big deal in the boxing world. I mean, you're supposed to hit a certain weight for a reason, right? Like when he was supposed to fight Francisco Fonseca for the IBF super featherweight title. Davis came in 2 pounds overweight, which meant he was disqualified from winning the title, even if he won the fight, and it's not just that one time. Davis has had a few others where he's had to go through a bunch of extra effort just to make the weight limit. During the weigh-in for his fight against Walsh, he had to get naked and use a towel to try and make weight, which is just yikes, not a good look, you know? When you're a professional athlete, it's kind of part of the job to get yourself in shape. But despite all the weight drama, Gervonta Davis has still managed to rack up some seriously impressive wins. I'm talking knockout after knockout. He's got some serious power in those fists. After the whole Fonseca debacle, Davis came back strong and won his next 2 fights with knockouts. He even managed to win the WBA super featherweight title in 2018 with a crushing knockout of Jesus Cuellar. Let me tell you, it was a beautiful moment. Davis just unleashing this fury of punches, and before you knew it, Cuellar was down for the count.
Made him feel like, okay, let me get serious now. There's levels to this game, levels. So that was the level that he had to understand and he had to be serious about because he's a world champion now. He lost it, got it back now. So now let's not let that happen again. You know, so hopefully he can be that superstar that he wanted to become.
But it's not just the knockouts that have been impressive. It's also been the way Davis has kind of redeemed himself after the whole weight thing. He's worked hard to make weight for his fights, to the point of him even moving up to lightweight. Davis is just one of those fighters who's always going to have a bit of drama surrounding him, whether it's about his weight or something else. But there's no denying that he's got some serious talent and potential. And that's all for Gervonta Davis's rise to fame.